Good afternoon to everybody. We want to thank Orit Zvulka for sponsoring this video. It's in thanksgiving to Hashem who helped the operation in our eyes to be successful. We just want to say to you, Orit, that you not only is your physical eye that it should be better, but we always know that you've got a very wonderful spiritual eye to look everything that you see in a positive light. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu should continue that you should have an Ein Tovah in its double meaning. An Ein Tovah, number one, that your sight should always be good, and an Ein Tovah that you should always continue to look at things in the world in a good light, which makes you special. The beginning of Parshat Vayakhel speaks about the inyanim of Shabbat, but basically speaks about the construction of the Mishkan. And as we all know, the preface of the laws of Shabbat, or having to observe the Shabbat, came to teach us that the building of the Beit HaMikdash and the Mishkan can't be at the expense of Chilul, desecrating Shabbat Chas v'Chalila. But I wanted to speak about, it's not directly connected, but because the beginning of the Parsha speaks about Shabbat and the importance and the Kedusha of Shabbat, I wanted to speak about a certain peculiar minhagim associated with Shabbat, peculiar in inverted commas, and to explain them on the basis of an explanation of Rav Tzvi Shlita, who quotes the Biur Halacha, in other words, the Mishnah Brura, Chofetz Chaim, and the Torat Chaim. First of all, the first peculiarity, which will, once we understand this, the answer or the clarification to this strange like structure, we'll be able to understand other minhagim of Shabbat. We start off Kabbalah, we end off Kabbalah Shabbat with a lecha dodi. And in the lecha dodi, the structure seems to be very strange, because the first two stanzas of lecha dodi speak about Shabbat, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, and then the other stanza, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'neocha, let us go out now and welcome the Shabbat, ki hi makor habracha, because the Shabbat is the source for all blessing. And then the rest of the 6 stanzas of the lecha dodi, they've got nothing to do with Shabbat. They speak about the future redemption and the building of the Beit HaMikdash. So you can see the next one, Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha, speaks about the Mikdash and the city of majesty, referring to the Shalayim. And then it speaks about that we should pick ourselves up from the dust, and we should wear our majestic clothes. Hitorari speaks about that we should arouse now, Kiva Orech, the Mashiach is coming, etc., etc. All these things. So what are the two things got to do together? So Rav Kook, in his one of his works, he says an amazing, I mean, it's so clear, but the way he expresses it is amazing. What he says is as follows, that of course we know that, let's start off that the second stanza speaks about that Shabbat is makor habracha. It's the source of all blessings. So first of all, we must understand that the 6 days of creation and the Shabbat, they're not two sets of days which are not connected one with the other. What we're saying is that the Shabbat is a makor, that it's connected to the 6 days, and it's a source of blessing for the 6 days. So it's not only the climax of the 6 days preceding it, but it's also the beginning and the source of all blessings for the coming 6 days that come afterwards. So Rav Kook explains it as follows. He says that when we desist from work on the 6th day, and then what we do is we rest on the 7th day. So what are we saying? The purpose of the Shabbat is to show us, like the Torah itself says, that Hashem created the world in 6 days and that he rested on the 7th day. Then the Rambam, Maimonides, in the Moreh Nevuchim, he explains the significance of this. He's saying, why is this such a fundamental? It's a fundamental because people of old, even up to recently, believed that the world wasn't created. There was just like sort of eternal matter. And by now copying Hashem and working on the 6 days and then resting on the 7th, and people say, why are you desisting from work on the 7th day? We'll answer them, because we are following Hashem, who did exactly the same things. Then that gives a message that there is a creator to the world. But now comes this beautiful explanation of Rav Kook, in which he says, if we really understand what we're saying, we live by this message that Hashem made the world. We believe that Hashem, and we know that Hashem is the absolute good, the absolute perfection. So if Hashem made the world, it means that the world is going, because he's perfect, he's not going to make a messed up world. He's not going to make a world which is full of mistakes and of evil. Ultimately, the world is going to be perfected, because God's perfect. He created the world. It's not that there was just eternal matter. And as a perfect God, we are assured that in the future, the world will come to its completion. And that's one of the explanations of that Shabbat. Hi makor habracha. The Shabbat that we celebrate now, the Shabbat of Bereshit, of creation of the world, that's the makor. That is the source of inspiration for us to always have faith in the goodness of the world, that ultimately in Olam Haba, the future, that world will be perfected and we'll partake, B'ezrat Hashem, in that perfection. So this connection between the beginning of the creation of the world in the past and the future would help us explain to a couple of minhagim. I'm looking at my clock and I want to see now if I've got time for all of them. But let's start off with a very basic question. We know that one of the reasons that we cover the chalot on Shabbat is to remind us up. We have 2 chalot and we cover them, both at the bottom and the top, in order to remind us of the miracle of the man that happened, that was during the time of Am Yisrael in the desert. But the Biur Halacha and others, they ask us, it's very strange, because Dafka on Shabbat, the man didn't come down. The man came down a double portion on Friday, because they weren't allowed to collect on Shabbat. So how are we doing on Shabbat commemoration for something, a phenomena that actually didn't happen on Shabbat? We are we're commemorating the miracle of the man, which actually, of all the days that it fell, it didn't fall on Shabbat. So the Torah Chayim, the Tosfot says that, sometimes a negative reminder is also a reminder. Because it didn't fall on Shabbat, that's why we're making a reminder on Shabbat. But the Chafetz Chaim says this is a difficult. It's a dochak. It's a forced answer. It's not really. It doesn't sit well on the heart. That's what the Chafetz Chaim says. The Torah Chayim, one of the commentators, wrote a lot of chidushim on the Shas, and the Torah Chayim, he explains as follows. He says that for those people who are learning the Daf Yomi now, in the Perek of Chagiga, in the Masechet Chagiga, there's a whole section about metaphysics. And in there it says that there are 7 Rakiim, there's 7 firmaments. Like we know in space, there's different types of atmospheres. There's the Earth, there's the atmosphere, stratosphere, etc. There's like layers and layers of spheres in space, with thinner and thinner and thinner air, but other gases. So similarly, there's spiritual realms which are Reki'im. Let's say they call their firmaments, atmospheres. There's 7. And in the Gemara there it says that one of them is called Shechakim. And now the word shachak means something which is very lofty, but the word leshachak also means it means to press, to compress. So the Gemara says, why is it called shchakim? Because in that atmosphere, in that rakia, in the world to come, so what will happen is this is where they will prepare and they will compress a certain material so that the tzaddikim will eat from that a man. So the Torah Chaim says, you know what the pshat is? When we commemorate eating the man on Shabbat, we're not remembering the man which of this world when we are the Jewish people in the desert. We are, so to speak, hinting at the man that the tzaddikim are going to eat as a spiritual type of food in the world to come, right, which is prepared in the place called Shechakim. So we asked a question. The question is, why commemorate something on Shabbat when it's not, when the man didn't fall on Shabbat? The answer is we're not commemorating something that is in the past. We're commemorating something which is in the future. This ties up with what we said beforehand. We said beforehand that when we sing the lecha dodi, we speak about the first two, the Shabbat that was made in this world, and then we speak about the Shabbat, the completion and the Geula and the redemption. All the other standards speak about the building of the Beit HaMikdash and the Geula. So these two are connected, the past Shabbat and the future Shabbat. And that's why we have this minhag of the minhag of the man, of covering up the lecha Mishnah. And again, the beautiful explanation of Rav Kook is the two things are bound, mamash, inextricably with the one with the other. Why? Because if I believe that Hashem created the world in 6 days and he rested on the seventh day, I'm making a statement that there was a perfect creator who created the world. Well, that perfect creator is going to see to it that the world is going to reach its destiny, its goal, which is perfection. Olam haba. And therefore, that gives us the great optimism to fight and to already prepare ourselves and not to see always the bad in creation, but to know ultimately that everything will come to its fruition. I think there's a little less time now. It's already 12 minutes, so I'm going to stop over here. And maybe there are other things to do with the way that we make Kiddush, which also we do it in a certain way, which also reminds us to Olam Haba, but we'll use another opportunity to explain that connection. Shabbat Shalom to everybody. And as we say, Mishenichnas Adar Marbi Basimcha, we to have a happy Adar, and now soon we Mavarchim HaChodesh, there should be a happy Osa Adar Sheni. Kol Tov and Shabbat Shalom.